We are recording and streaming with Miss Claire Lopez on Monday, August 19th, 2024 at 1:36 p.m. Eastern Time. Miss Lopez has been on here a trillion times before. You can go to the link in the description for the link to every website, every social, most importantly, the Twitter. Um, and there seems to be a lot going on right now. I mean, after the Trump assassination attempt, you have Trump's plane makes an emergency landing. Then this week, you have JD Vance's plane makes an emergency landing. You have Kamala coming out and talking about price controls and price gouging, which is a communist tactic that has literally never worked ever anywhere at any time in any iteration. They're doing a creepy thing about joy, which just feels like we're in a dystopian future. And all the while, we're sending a massive portion of the Navy to the Middle East. And I think there's some hurricanes. And so, as always, people are here to listen to you and not me. And so, Miss Lopez, the smorgasbord is yours. And what are we talking about?
Well, thanks, Tommy. It's always good to be back with you. Where do
Yes,
you want to
ma'am.
start? Which one of these?
I would, for me, I always try to look at like the whatever's like the most fundamental foundational level. For me, it always seems to be like military movement. Everything else seems to be downstream of that, in my
Okay, we'll
unexperienced
do
opinion.
abroad and then we'll bring it home.
Sure.
Um, yeah, the world and certainly the Middle East region and Israel, we're all on edge, kind of waiting to see what the Iranian regime response, if any, is going to be, now having been threatened for what, couple of weeks, I guess, since two eliminations. One, Fuad Shukr, who was um, top Hezbollah terror operative in Beirut. He, by the way, Shukr, for many years was the number two to the then Hezbollah number one top terror chieftain, Imad Mughniya. Name might be familiar to folks, but Imad Mughniya, until his own elimination in Damascus in February of 2008, until then, he had commandeered all of Hezbollah terror operations to include both the 1983 U.S. and French embassy bombings as well as the U.S. Marine Corps barracks bombings of that year. Big truck suicide bombings, we'll remember. But also, which often, all too often, I don't know why, gets left out, the two of these, Imad Mughniya and his deputy, number two, Fuad Shukr, were both intimately involved in the attacks of 9/11. Why? Because Hezbollah worked with the Iranian regime, worked with Al Qaeda, worked with Taliban, and yes, Saudi Arabia too, in those attacks. So the takedown of Imad Mughniya, first of all, many other terror attacks, on his rap sheet as well. I'd spend the rest of the show talking about all of them, but from the American point of view, those two stand out. But after his takedown in 2008, Fuad Shukr took his place as terror chieftain of Hezbollah. And until his elimination, nobody claiming credit per se, but it is thought, that this is the Israelis who pinpointed his location in the Dahia, that's the southern part of Beirut, which is owned and occupied primarily by Hezbollah. Anyway, he's gone. But the other elimination that Iran is bent on revenge for was, of course, the Hamas political leader, Ismail Haniyeh, who met his end in Tehran, actually, in a neighborhood of Tehran that was heavily guarded by, supposedly, by the Iranian intelligence and security services. And this one apparently somehow got a bomb into um, the house where he was staying, or maybe it was an apartment building. Anyway, multi room location there. Got a bomb in under Hania's bed,
Yeah.
and somehow um, there were eyes on his comings and goings there in Tehran. Knew exactly when he went into that room. This was something like, I don't know, 1:30 in the morning, Tehran time, together with one bodyguard. And off he went, they went, both of them, to meet their virgins. So, in response to those two eliminations, a very senior, one Hezbollah, one Hamas terror leader, Iran has been promising, pledging revenge ever since. But in response to that, there's been an absolute flurry of diplomatic efforts led by the United States and Secretary of State Antony Blinken, but also on the part of Russia and other players in the Middle East, to persuade the Iranian regime to hold back. Well, they've held back now for a couple of weeks. Um, but in the meantime, as you were mentioning, pointing to there, Tommy, the United States in particular has surged military assets to the region to include two aircraft carriers, one, the USS Theodore Roosevelt, which already had been in the region and due to rotate back home again, but now is staying, I think, in the Mediterranean for that one. And then the USS Abraham Lincoln aircraft carrier and its accompanying strike group that had been out in the Middle East, I'm sorry, in the Far East, and was ordered to make all haste to the Middle East. As I understand it, that aircraft carrier and strike group now, I think, is transiting the Indian Ocean. Takes a while, but they are headed eventually for the Middle East. I don't know exactly which um, waterway, perhaps the Persian Gulf, perhaps the Red Sea. Not sure about that. In addition, a nuclear-powered submarine, the USS Georgia,
Mm-hmm.
also surged to the region. Not exactly sure where that one is either. Hopefully in the Persian Gulf. Um, and then a number of F-22 Raptor fighter jets
Yeah.
and other forces, all surged to the region by the United States in an effort to forestall, to delay, to convince the Iranian regime not to escalate. The petrifying fear of our Biden administration right now and the Antony Blinken State Department that keeps them up at night and they hide under the covers from this is escalation. And that means not only holding Iran's regime back from a revenge strike against Israel, but at the same time trying to hold the Israelis back from completing the mission of eliminating the Hamas threat in Gaza. It's kind of like 1944, and Berlin is surrounded, and Hitler is hiding down in his bunker, and the watchword of the day is ceasefire, ceasefire now, as fast as possible, ceasefire. We don't want to escalate. I mean, can we even imagine such a thing? But that's what's going on, especially from the Biden administration versus Israel. Um, but at the moment, things again very tense, on a knife's edge of tension, and we'll just have to see where this goes. Recent talks in Doha, in Qatar, as I understand, uh, finished yesterday with Antony Blinken, I think, now having arrived in Cairo, Egypt, to continue the talks. But the funny thing is, Hamas was not present at either place, Doha or Qatar. And the word is that I've seen that Hamas has refused, turned down any of the recent proposals coming out of the little Antony Blinky State Department. So again, everything up in the air, a lot of tension, and we'll have to see where this goes.
This is from, obviously my limited experience, but you having a history in this. This is this isn't a like a routine buildup though, right? There's like
No, it's it's
there's
it's
there's
much
there's always
well.
movement, there's always ships. I mean, there's like a
It's
meme
similar
online.
though. It's not far different. It's similar to the buildup back, we'll recall, in April of this year, 2024, after Iran had directly attacked against Israel with those 300 some odd different projectiles. So it's there's a a kind of a repetition of that kind of buildup, which I also should add includes regional governments like Saudi Arabia's, the Arab Emirates, and our allies, other European allies like the British and the French.
Yeah, I mean, there's it's like a meme online that there's always like material movement in the United States of trains. You always, a train full of APCs or MRAPs or helicopters, and it's been a meme for the last like 15 years. You could find that at any day and be like, "What is this? This is martial law." And the reality is, it's just like National Guard
No,
exercises.
but this is a very specific
Yeah,
buildup that happened right now
well, that's what I'm saying
because
is,
of the Iranian threat and because of Israel's determination to eliminate Hamas out of Gaza.
yeah, well, that's what I'm saying is, this isn't that. Like, this
Yeah.
is that. And in the same light, you're always gonna find some NATO exercise going on somewhere, or some, you know, amphibious carrier going somewhere. That's not this. This is a pretty significant buildup. I
It
mean,
is.
the USS Georgia, I don't think that was even announced. I'm pretty sure it just appeared,
Well, it appeared in all kinds of media, which is, of course, where I saw it.
which is an announcement, sure. But what I mean is, like, it's not we're sending the USS Abraham Lincoln over there, which I also get. There's a, it's a surface vessel, so you can't really hide it. Might as well announce it. But there is that seems to be kind of a point of interest of the USS George just appeared there. It wasn't like we're sending, it's steaming ahead. It just kind of showed up there, which I guess is, what subs do. Um, but and then what the who is Iran said that it was kind of weird. They were like hyping it up like it was like an album release. Like we're blowing it up on Monday. We're blowing Israel up on Monday or whatever. And then they just kind of said it will do
Well,
it in a couple weeks.
keeping Israel and you know the people of Israel psychologically
Sure, it's a torture.
in a state of worry and wondering when, if this is going to happen. I mean, that's part of the
It's a weapon
psychological
itself.
warfare on the
Sure.
part of the Iranian regime.
Sure. Yeah, no, it's a weapon itself. And I definitely get that. Um, this is an interesting thing because what we've seen is kind of an absence of the US deterrent because of a
Yeah.
kind of a wet noodle Biden administration. What is this? Because this seems to be a pretty sizable buildup. So what
Yeah.
is this? Is this a
Well,
signaling
remember,
of Biden
yeah,
going out, or
it's not that somehow little Antony Blinky found a spine. He didn't.
sure?
But this is for a dual purpose, as I see it, and again, to maybe deter the Iranian regime, Hezbollah too, perhaps, but also to pressure the Israeli government, um, to not conclude its military operation within Gaza, and to somehow offer more and more concessions in these talks that seem to go on forever with no conclusion. Maybe that's the point.
Hmm.
Um, to grant more concessions, vacating the Rafah border there with Sinai, Egypt, vacating the Netzarim corridor, which sits astride sort of the middle east-west of Gaza. Concessions like these, how many, bloody Islamic terrorists you're going to let out of prison, that sort of thing. So I think there are multiple purposes to the U.S. buildup at the same time as these diplomatic missions that go nowhere continue.
Yeah. And then is it related at all, or I guess everything's related? Venezuela, and is it Maduro?
Yeah, so elections for president were held in Venezuela again a couple of weeks ago. The incumbent dictator, Nicolas Maduro, who himself succeeded his prior dictator, Hugo Chavez, who died of cancer back in 2013. Maduro, a former bus driver, took over. And these elections now were held in Venezuela a couple of weeks ago. International observers and the Venezuelan opposition, led by their candidate Gonzalez and his vice presidential candidate Machado, declared victory based on all the data, the voter data, coming out of voting polling places and voting places. And what's interesting to me now is to watch internationally, for example, in Spain, when tens of thousands of Spaniards came out on the streets over this past weekend to protest the Maduro regime's declaration of victory in the elections, which they did not win, and security crackdown against the legitimate Venezuelan opposition.
Is there going to be any actual response from the United States, or is this all saber
The
rattling?
United States has issued a statement that we, the United States, do not view the declared outcome of the Maduro regime as legitimate, that they won, which they did not. So there was a nice little statement. Yeah.
Nothing. All right, fair enough. Nothing. Um, and then on the home front is the DNC this week? Is it starting today?
Yes, it began really last night. We're
Okay.
talking again on Monday, the 19th. Things began to be organized and set up at the DNC convention arena last night. But also last night, we began to see hundreds, if not thousands, of protesters arriving themselves and setting up in Chicago as close as they can get to the convention center venue itself. There are humongous metal fences all over the city. But notable also to me was reporting, we saw in the media last night, that so many businesses, regular, ordinary businesses, large and small, in downtown Chicago and even out to the suburbs, have boarded up and closed, which is really,
Really not a good look.
quite a statement
Yeah.
about the chaos that's expected to erupt this week, today, Monday through Thursday, for the DNC convention.
Yeah, not really a good look. I mean, it really is the same thing as when you go and pet a dog and it flinches and its owner beats it. That's kind of the DNC coming into town.
Well, I mean, what's interesting is, of course, the inevitable memories of the 1968 Democrat Party
Mm.
convention in Chicago. Whatever possessed them to choose Chicago this time, I have no
No
idea.
idea.
But the memories of the chaos that erupted in Chicago in 1968, which of course was just prior to another presidential election that November, and in which Richard Nixon and the Republicans prevailed in that election, at least in part on a platform of law and order.
Mm-hmm.
Well, here we go again. And it is predicted, at least it's said, that something on the order of 100,000 protesters are due to descend upon Chicago. A number of things come to mind. Not only are these protesters, which come from what one might have thought to be the base for the Democrat Party in these elections, but that's where they come from, protesting against the Biden regime's assistance, support for Israel, and that includes both, the comatose incumbent Joe Biden and his, communist vice president, now herself, Kamala Harris, running with another communist selected for her vice presidential candidate. But the protests aimed at both the current incumbent administration of the Democrat Party and the ones that are running now to succeed it. So that's pretty interesting. But also what they're doing to Chicago, to the neighborhoods of Chicago, to the people of Chicago, which typically vote blue. I mean, it's a blue city, it's a blue state in Illinois. But because of the absolute chaotic response to what's going to be a chaotic week, the people, the ordinary people, and in the less prosperous neighborhoods, people of Chicago, they're the ones going to be suffering from this. They're not going to be able to go to their ordinary shops and grocery stores and so forth for at least 4 days, 5 days maybe. And who knows how long it'll last, even maybe beyond that. It's those people who are going to be suffering, from the consequences of the Democrat Party's, absolutely incoherent, riven with divisiveness campaign this year. It's going to be quite something to watch. But my heart does go out in all of it to these people, in Chicago. And I began this, talking about the 68 Democrat convention in Chicago, likewise. Maybe take a lesson from that, folks, and think about the Republican National Convention held in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, just a few weeks ago. You want Milwaukee or you want Chicago? Think about that when you go to vote.
Wasn't Bobby Kennedy killed in 68? But that was LA, right?
Pardon? Say it again.
Wasn't Bobby Kennedy? Wasn't he killed in
Oh, I see.
68?
Yes, that's
But,
right.
but that was
Yes,
Los
yes. That
Angeles,
was an
right?
awful year,
Yeah.
honestly. 1968, Martin Luther King, too.
Uh-huh. Yeah, was it James Earl Ray killed
It was an
and
awful, awful year.
Sirhan killed? I was just jogging my own memory.
Mm-hmm.
But that was the Ambassador Hotel. That was Los Angeles. And then MLK was James Earl Ray. Where was that?
Memphis,
I was
Tennessee?
about to say, was it Memphis?
I
Okay.
believe so. Yeah.
All right. I'm just thinking aloud.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then I mean, you also can't make up the jokes about the DNC free abortions and vasectomies.
Oh,
I mean,
there we go. Next topic. I mean, you're trying to appeal to your Democrat voter base,
sterilize
many
yourself.
of whom are African Americans, many of whom are African American devout Christians, and you are going to highlight, headline your convention in Chicago with free abortions and free LMNOP kind of stuff and vasectomies. I don't think this is going to go over so well for those devout, practicing
It,
African American population of Christians. Just
it
wondering
is
about that.
such an unshielded racism. It is. I mean, I think it was it Margaret Sanger started Planned Parenthood.
That's right. Yes.
Crazy eugenicist, like against the African
Exactly.
race.
Eugenics against which population?
The blacks, yeah. I
The
mean that
African American
that
population
is.
of America.
I mean,
Well, they haven't changed their tune, have
what a
they? In how many decades?
what a wild what a wild thing. That's what a wild. That'd be like that's like Canada offering euthanization to their veterans who have
Yeah, I mean, or
PTSD.
chickens for KFC, as people have said.
Yeah, I
There we go.
mean,
Yeah.
but at the same time, it's like don't interrupt your enemy. You know, you're just watching them. It's just like yeah, let's let it roll. Just throw the dice. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, and what does this do again within the I guess projected the targeted base of the Democrat Party for its voter electorate? What does this do in Arab and Muslim communities, of which there are many in and around Chicago? Um, that elemental peace stuff, vasectomies, that's not really exactly what they're all about.
Hmm.
Um, and I'm curious to see in which direction that might go. It's not just Chicago, of course, but we can think of places, urban centers like Detroit, Michigan, Dearborn, Michigan, and so forth. Um, how is that going to shore up the projected, the desired, the needed voter electorate base of the Democrat Party?
Yeah, it does seem to be opposing forces or disparate forces are finally all coming to a head, right? You can't have the the pro-Palestine protesters and also have, you can't have a party saying, we support Israel, the other guys are Nazis, and then also have a significant chunk of your portion be pro-Palestine, and then again offering vasectomies and abortions
I,
and
I
gay
mean,
marriage to devoutly Islamic.
the
It's kind of funny.
messaging is just so incoherent, so um, I mean, just a complete chaotic mess. I don't know how they bring this together.
What is the actual? I mean, I really haven't paid attention. What is the actual like messaging? Like genuine question. What is the,
Well,
the platform
if
of the
we
Kamala
listen
Waltz?
to presidential candidate, current Vice President Kamala Harris, and her running mate, current governor of Wisconsin, I'm sorry, of Minnesota, um,
The Waltz.
Tim Walz, the messaging is um, stuff. We're going to give you stuff. You're an illegal alien. All 18 million of you, or however many there are. Yeah, you're going to have free healthcare, free education, free Medicare. Oh, and we're going to sign you up for free Social Security too. And then, of course, in that address that Kamala gave this past week or so, which was supposed to be her economic plan, I guess. I mean, she really mucked it up when she began talking about um, communist concepts. I mean, core, communist manifesto ideas like redistribution of wealth, which is what she means, what she's talking about, although she may not use those exact words. But when under a coercive, um, you know, uh, uh, taxation regimen um, for the purpose of forcible a redistribution of wealth, that's communism. And it is directly out of the 1848 Communist Manifesto written by Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels. Not completely sure if she's familiar with that, although, of course,
What was
Kamala
that?
is from a hardcore communist Marxist family, but I don't know how much of that she absorbed or how much she's just maybe reading off of a teleprompter.
Yeah, no, there doesn't seem to be any coherent. I don't even mean that as like a low-hanging fruit attack. I don't even know what the message is. Like I legitimately don't know.
Well, I mean, at one and the same time, she's trying to appeal to the have-nots. Saul Alinsky come to mind. The
Mhm.
have-nots of our society, to include those umpteen million illegal aliens, appeal to them and all the ones they've gotten registered to vote, all of them. But then at the same time, um, you know, promising uh, to increase taxes, to go after businesses, which are the engines that drive economic growth and prosperity in the country, um, to clamp down on them, to impose more taxes on them, which of course will kill business. Um, at the same time as she's trying to give an economic plan speech, um, it doesn't hang together, as even economic experts on the Democrat Party side reluctantly had to point out.
Um, did you watch any of the or listen to any of the Trump Elon interview?
I listened to, I think, most of it. As we know, of course, there were some technical glitches, shall we say, in the beginning with a great big DDoS, distributed denial of service cyber attack, but they got it going after some delay. And yeah, I did listen to most of it.
Anything stick out? Just in general,
Well, I mean, number one, it was just the ease of the conversation, the rapport between these two, Elon Musk and President Donald Trump. They obviously had spoken before. They were on easy conversational terms. It wasn't an interview in the end, was it? Really, it was a 2 hour conversation between two brilliant men, and it was entertaining, yes, to listen to, but it was also informative in a lot of ways. Elon and Trump are obviously on the same page of music, economically speaking, in terms of what it is needed to to revive our economy right now, to revive business, to revive our energy sector. Um, Reduce regulations that cripple business formation and prosperity. They're on the same page with all of that. And it was good to hear it, spoken about in very conversational terms. But what I mean is in terms that ordinary listeners could understand. This wasn't, economic professor speak, right? These were conversational uh, terms and a conversation that everyday Americans could understand. Americans trying, to manage, a family budget in these times and put food on the table, hold down 2 or 3 jobs at one time in order to do that. And they acknowledged all of that. They spoke to the ordinary American and American family. And that's what stood out to me.
yeah, I think it that did. The one thing that kind of got to me was Elon Musk saying you need to be able to. I mean, obviously, it's like the American dream, safe place to raise your family, good job, blah blah blah. But he's like, you also have to believe that the future is better than the past.
Yeah.
And he's like, even if it's something like he's like, for most people, it's groceries and schools for your kids. But
Hmm.
in terms of like a meta theme, he's like, you need something like an Apollo program. He's like, there's real, and obviously he's biased because he has a space company, but there is, and I think that's kind of one thing that stuck out to me the most was like you do kind of there is it's not all cheesy propaganda. Like you do need an Apollo program. You do need something that everyone rallies behind. It is good for the psyche. It legitimately is. Uh,
Yeah, that's true. You
yeah,
know, I mean, and that is what struck me here, is that they both of them were addressing not the elite, stratospheric levels of accomplishment that each of them has
yeah,
achieved, primarily in the business sector, Elon and all kinds of ventures, scientific and otherwise, and Trump, of course, primarily in real estate. Not that level, but the ordinary people, who are trying to again make ends meet, put food on the table, send kids to school, with backpacks and new shoes and all the supplies they're going to need for starting the school year. That level of kitchen table economics, they know how to talk about that. They're not stuck in the stratosphere of their own economic, accomplishments, but
yeah.
but but they know how to talk to ordinary people and to appeal to them, that with their plan, their knowledge, their accomplishments, certainly, that we can look back on in the Trump 4 years of his prior tenure, that they know how to do this, and that there is hope, that they can bring back those days, of the Trump administration.
Mm,
Um, and I think that is what holds out the hope. That is what, can inspire people to look forward, to look ahead. And I do think that the economy is absolutely number one on Americans' minds. Yes, we can, link into that issues related to the wide open southern border, as we've talked about, illegals taking from the lowest, you know, levels of the economic ladder in America, taking from them not just jobs, but all kinds of benefits, that they're not getting, that our veterans are not getting. Um, so linking those two top tier issues, I would say, I think they did a very good job of that.
mm. Yeah. No, it's yeah, it is the general thing where you can't really get too high-minded about stuff when you can't afford groceries or you can't afford this, that, and the other.
The
And I,
basics.
and I also
Yeah.
thought it was very important
Yeah.
Trump talking about nuclear escalation. Like
Mm.
we have this false notion that mutual assured destruction died with the end of the Cold War. And
Mhm.
all those missiles are still primed, fully fueled in silos, in ground mobile, in submarines, in or bombs in stealth bombers. They're all still there. And it can absolutely escalate just as much today. I mean, in a week, we could be in a new Cuban Missile Crisis. Like none of these things have gone away. None of these capabilities have gone away.
Well, it's not just the known previous nuclear threats
Sure.
from communist regimes like Russia's or China's, um, North Korea's, but it is now the additional concern that is being spoken about quite openly, even about our own U.S. government intelligence community spokespeople, uh, of the Iranian regime nuclear weapons threat. And statements coming from Rafael Grossi, the Director General of the IAEA, International Atomic Energy Agency, um, as to how much enriched uranium the Iranian regime has on hand, how quickly they could turn that and any more that they're rapidly producing, how quickly they could turn all that into even more warheads than they likely already have. And at what point will they begin to attach those warheads to the nose cones of the missiles we already know they already have?
Hmm.
That perhaps even more than the previous threats that we've kind of lived with and tried to manage over the past decades. Again, Russia, China, North Korea, but now Iran, which is in an axis of alignment with Russia, China, and North Korea on its nuclear program, its ballistic missile program, and we don't even need to talk about its biological weapons and chemical weapons programs.
Didn't Iran make an? I feel like I think the last time you and I spoke with Mitzi, we brought this up. Didn't Iran recently publicly declare like a major advancement in their nuclear weapons program?
They're being a little bit coy about it in official statements coming from a regime spokespeople. But the gist of some of their comments more recently is that they're being a lot more open and aggressive and belligerent in talking about their nuclear program, which we all know is a nuclear weapons program. But they've been more open and more threatening in recent weeks than ever before, which suggests to me at least they've already got nuclear warheads. Let's just put that away. That's done, and they're making more. But how soon and under what circumstances would they begin to attach those warheads to their missile nose cones and or to demonstrate a deliverable nuclear weapons capability in an attack or a test?
And then you got to imagine that that is in the calculus, if not the priority and reason for the current buildup. If Israel's saying behind closed doors or in front of closed doors, saying we will strike them if they are at the end point of essentially plugging in the nuclear Christmas tree.
Well, I mean, Israel, as any other country, has the internationally legal
First
right
preemptive first strike.
recognized to anticipatory self-defense. You don't have to wait until attacked by nuclear weapons, which would be existential, of course, for Israel, so small as it is. You don't have to wait for that before striking out in anticipatory self-defense.
And then is that the reason for the US buildup? Are we looking at it going, this is inevitable? Got to try to keep the firestorm from
I
completely
mean, we're hoping
exploding.
not. I'm sure this is at least something, one of the things on the mind of our diplomatic representatives crisscrossing the Middle East and so forth these days. Um, they don't want to talk about Iran, though. It's got to be on their minds, yeah. But I don't see them speaking about the Iran threat, either nuclear or even as the backer, funder, supplier, armor, trainer of the Islamic jihadi proxies Iran's regime's got going all over the Middle East, from Hamas to Palestinian Islamic Jihad, Hezbollah, the Iraqi Hashd-Shabi militias, the Houthis, of course. They don't ever talk about those. They don't want to upset the mullahs, I guess.
But the actions show that that is absolutely what we're anticipating, right?
Well, in one way or another, either anticipating um, a demonstration of that capability, or the forestalling of that demonstration by Israel, because we're sure not going to do it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
not,
it kind of feels like it's it's the firefighters bringing out the big trampoline. They don't want anyone to jump, but they have a feeling it's going to happen, right? It's just like Israel's, and it's preemptive that they're going to if Iran uh, tries to do it, and it's almost like we know it can't. It's almost like we know it can't be stopped if it does happen.
well, I don't want to go that far and to say it's inevitable. I don't want to
Sure.
say that. Um, but the ratcheting up on the part of the Iranian regime of its belligerence, its threats, its open references to its nuclear program, which was not the case always in years past. This is different. It is a new level of aggression and belligerence. But in view of that, certainly tensions are heightened. No way around it. What we don't know is what's going on behind the scenes. And I guess there is a lot going on behind the scenes that, does not make it into open source public reporting.
Sure. I mean, yeah, no, I'm not saying it's an inevitability, but rather if A and B happens, then it's an inevitability. That's what I think. That's what I feel like is it's
Well, I
not.
mean, we are still at that if then
Yeah.
what stage, but it's very serious. Yes.
And then kind of lastly, and this is just pure speculation.
Hmm.
When Trump said, we're gonna build our own Iron Dome.
Uh,
Are they brushing off Reagan's Star Wars?
well, I don't know that. Of course, the establishment of the Space Command by the President Trump administration some years ago, by the way, in collaboration with help from Elon Musk and his Starlink network of satellites already up there. One has to think that this is being discussed. I would hope it is. But when President Trump at his rallies talks about an Iron Dome, he is referring to that, aerial defense system that Israel has used to such great defensive effect
Hmm.
against projectiles coming in from Gaza, especially also from Hezbollah. But to be clear, Iron Dome is for short range
Yeah.
interception of projectiles.
Yeah.
But for the longer range, and for example, what Israel used back in the April onslaught from the Iranian regime, in particular, was the Arrow 3 system. There are also other systems like Patriot, which is something in
Hmm.
collaboration with the United States, of course. So I think when President Trump refers to Iron Dome, he means that in a kind of a generic sense
Got it.
of the kinds of um, you know aerial defense systems that we need. By the way, in particular, along our Gulf and Atlantic coasts, where folks might not know this, but we have no radar or anti-ballistic missile defense systems. None. We don't have any. And we know for a fact that even as far back as Soviet Union days and then Russia, um, that there was a program of the Russians called a fractional orbital bombardment
Bob's, yeah.
system, right? And what that means in just plain English is a missile system, a cruise missile type system that on its trajectory can bounce in and out of, skip in and out of the atmosphere, the Earth's atmosphere, if you will, making it super difficult to track or intercept. But that also flies on a polar trajectory, meaning that it would come up at the United States in this instance, out of the south against what? What did I just say?
No radar.
Our undefended Atlantic and Gulf coasts.
Oof.
Okay. That is a real vulnerability. I'm not revealing anything that's not
Yeah, no,
already
it's all
been
yeah, it's
open
all
source for a long time. But when President Trump, talks about an aerial defense system, I do hope that he's thinking about these undefended coastlines of ours, about the fractional orbital bombardment system possibility, which of course Russia has shared. We know, by the way, shared with the North Koreans that have got two satellites, one launched in 2012, one launched in 2014, that since that time, 10 and the 12 years ago, um, have been flying over the Western Hemisphere on a daily basis, to include over continental United States of America, every day on a polar trajectory coming up at us out of the south. And good, dearly missed mentor and expert, Dr. Peter Vincent Pry, who told me all. I didn't know all of that.
Hmm.
He taught me that stuff. Um, Told us way back when that those two satellites, North Korean satellites, are of a size and an attitude that could, we don't know, but potentially could, a weight, a size, um, contain a nuclear warhead. Now, after all these years, I don't know, those would still be operative, but Peter used to tell us that they, at that time, could be remotely detonated from Earth.
Oh,
Now, don't know, what kind of maintenance does a nuclear warhead need over 10 and 12 years in orbit? I don't know. Seems to me it might need something.
yeah.
But in any case, the whole point of this, back to President Trump, that hope he's taking all of this into consideration, thinking about this, and thinking about what kinds of air defense systems we really do need here in the United States. We know, for example, the last thought that comes to mind for me here, that the Israelis have been working for some years and are almost ready to deploy what they call an iron beam
Hmm.
system of aerial defense, which is um, a laser based aerial defense system, way, way cheaper than Iron Dome, which is what is it, $100,000 per missile or something on that
Yeah.
order. But Iron Beam, being laser based, super, super much cheaper, but also more effective in that
Yeah.
it can aim at a
Things.
spread of the
Yeah.
sky, a spectrum of the sky through which perhaps multiple projectiles could be coming and disable them all at once. Now,
Yeah.
I don't know the technology, I'm not an expert in that, but if that can come into not just development, but deployment by the Israelis over the next year or so is what they're saying. Um, Maybe that's something that we ought to be, or perhaps even are, already looking at in collaboration with the Israelis.
Yeah. I remember watching old documentaries back in like high school, like yeah, laser defenses, and I mean not just going the speed of light, which is like that's 700 million miles an hour or something. You can also target specific parts of the warhead. If you have intel on where
It
guys,
disables the electronics
yeah,
in it.
you can
Yes,
choose where it's not just can we hit the missile. It's like, do you want the nose? Do you want the bottom right side? It is insane,
amazing.
and I would imagine it's that. Yeah, I also do think, and this is kind of my own speculation. I do think there's probably a secondary application to Starlink. And by that, I mean, it's just such prime real estate for military. It'd be like if somebody built a skyscraper next to the White House. You'd say that's got to be intelligence because no
Right.
one gets a view of the White
Well, I mean,
House.
here's the other part of that with Elon Musk, and that is that indeed there is um, another purpose for Skylink beyond simply
Internet.
linking up Midwesterners with cell phone service. And that is as a redundancy backup system in case other systems,
Hmm.
electric grid, for example, on Earth, gets hit by an EMP, whether a coronal mass ejection from the sun or hit by an enemy nuclear attack.
Yeah, well, I'll find out when I'm 80 when there's some Discovery Channel documentary on Starlink. But then just my gut feeling. I'm just like, there's something else there. I don't know what it is, but there's something
Well, I
else
mean,
there.
again, this is open source. This has been talked
Yeah,
about publicly. And that is one of its purposes, is to be a backup redundancy system in case our American electric grid goes down for one reason or another.
yeah. Well, kind of ended on a cheery note. We kind of did. We better than normal, I think. You and I do.
Yeah, little bit of looking up. Yeah.
Yeah. But for now, Miss Lopez, we got to wrap this one up. Guys, please go in the description. Please go follow Claire on Twitter. And as always, I appreciate and value your time, and I love your input, Miss Lopez, and I love our conversations. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Tommy. Catch
Yes,
you next
ma'am.
time.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Take care.